Story 1. Executive order stating that all executive orders are subject to the approval of the legislative branch. Story 2. President for only one day? If we are considering United States presidential powers, there is not much one can accomplish in a single day. You are limited to executive orders, which can be immediately negated the next day by the new president. I would still overturn every single one of Trump's executive orders. I would also authorize Ukraine to use American arms as they see fit against Russia. The current president was far too weak in that regard. Then I would take Air Force One to fly to Wyoming and leverage the powers of my office to obtain a season pass to Jackson Hole. After my presidency ends, I would snowboard every day for the rest of the winter at one of the greatest resorts in the world. Story 3. I would contact the most knowledgeable economists and policy experts to devise a strategy to restore stability in the country. Story 4. Declare corporate money in politics a national security threat and a national emergency. Undo all of Trump's executive orders. Declare Election Day a federal holiday. Story 5.1. Immediately reverse any and all of Trump's executive orders. Disband Immigration and Customs Enforcement and the Department of Energy, and try anyone involved in the Department of Energy for treason under military jurisdiction. Pardon everyone incarcerated for possession of drugs for personal use, along with all nonviolent cannabis or psychedelic-related crimes. Issue an executive order to halt all aid to Israel and transfer it to Ukraine. Story 6.1. Write an executive order to appoint a vice president that I trust to run the country. Resign into obscurity. Story 7. Use my presidential immunity to walk to the Supreme Court, make a significant display of signing an official order with seals, oaths, and flourishes declaring it an official act to reprimand the judges. I would then reprimand the judges. After that, I would return to the White House and rest for the remainder of the day. Story 8. Rearrest all the January 6th rioters, hold the Republicans accountable for their actions, use an executive order to assist Native Americans, I am Native myself, and fly Air Force One across the country just to demonstrate my authority. Story 9. All personal liquid assets over $1 billion are immediately seized and allocated to establish a nationally owned supermarket chain that offers one of each basic product, all locally manufactured, and sells items at cost price. There will be a variety of local, seasonal fruits and vegetables. The workers are employed by the government and receive training and qualifications throughout the logistics chain. Story 10. Implement an age limit for the President, Congress, Senate, and Supreme Court judges. Limit presidential powers overall. No more executive orders. Restrict the number of pardons to 3 to 5. This will take effect immediately. A new election will take place in 3 months, as the current president would have to step down. Story 11. I do not know much about politics, but there are several things I would try to address. I would make abortion legal everywhere, regardless of state laws. I would also legalize cannabis nationwide. It is important to ensure that the Department of Education and the Department of Safety receive adequate funding and have qualified personnel. I believe we should respect Canada and apologize to the rest of the world for the actions of the United States. We need to encourage an end to racism and work towards removing corrupt politicians. Additionally, I would aim to ensure that everyone earns a reasonable wage for their work and has access to affordable housing. Life is challenging enough. Worrying about paying rent and having enough to eat should not be an issue for anyone. Story 12.1. Lock up the Nazis. Take away everyone's driver's licenses until they can complete a proper driver's course. Appoint a more qualified individual with the mandate to not reverse steps 1 and 2. Make the Yankees and Dodgers trade Ohtani and Judge to the Cubs. Additionally, the Royals must send Witt and the Pirates must send Skeens. Atlanta should also trade Profar. I also want Big Dumper from Seattle. Story 13. Codify Roe. Strengthen voting rights. Make Election Day a national holiday. Add Franklin D. Roosevelt's Second Bill of Rights to the Constitution. Add 4 seats to the Supreme Court and fill them. Reinstate the Fairness Doctrine. Redirect oil and gas subsidies to support single mothers and ensure no family ever receives a bill for childcare. Provide one-way tickets to Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Russell Vought to a destination of their choice, as long as they do not return. Encourage individuals to invite their neighbors for dinner. Read Matthew 25 verses 34 to 45 to evangelicals. Story 14. Issue an executive order for NASA and the military to alternate budget allocations every other year. Implement additional executive orders aimed at improving the lives of everyday citizens, particularly by reducing egg prices. Story 15. Sign as many executive orders as I can in 24 hours until my hand falls off to reverse all of Trump's executive orders, and my 3 last executive orders. 1. To codify the 3 branches of government to prevent domination by a single party. 1. To introduce a 3rd major party to break the 2-party system, and 1. To reform the electoral system. Additionally, I will likely include 1. To ban executive orders from having such unchecked and sweeping powers again, without review and approval from the other branches. Story 16. Put a 12% value-added tax and reduce income tax to 18%. Then eliminate all foreign aid, disband 11 aircraft carriers, and possibly reduce the paid military by about 500,000 personnel, which may cost between $200 and $300 billion a year, focusing instead on protecting America rather than surrounding Asia and Europe without clear justification. The funding could potentially be used to lower the costs of insulin and other life-saving medications. It is clear that I do not align with the Democratic Party or establishment Republicans. Story 17. I would do 2 things. First, I would create a sunset rule for all non-constitutional federal legislation so that every federal law would cease to exist unless it is reenacted every 8 years. I do not want Congress continually making new laws. I want them primarily to ensure that the laws we have are the best possible. Second, I would improve the legitimacy of our national elections by creating an online redundant voting system. This system would be a separate, second voting option in addition to our current in-person elections, which would not be binding. People would be highly encouraged to vote in both systems. The current system would remain the valid one for determining all actual election outcomes, but the online system would be used as a verification tool to eliminate fraud. Story 18. Enact a 70% tax rate on billionaires. All that money goes directly to bettering society, including healthcare for every American, free or low-cost education from kindergarten through postgraduate, including technical schools and apprenticeship programs, funding for all public schools, libraries, museums, public transportation, and bike lanes, regrowing our forests and reclaiming green space, improving access to the internet for rural areas. I would also sign executive orders requiring massive environmental protections in our country. Story 19. Seize and arrest the current administration for treason. Revoke citizenship for Elon Musk and deport him. Write executive orders reversing everything Donald Trump has done. Impeach Mike Johnson and pursue those in Congress and the Senate who supported Donald Trump with the coup and the events of January 6th. Establish age limits and term limits as a law for politicians. Similar to Germany, make Nazi symbols and propaganda illegal. Declare the Make America Great Again movement a hate group. Story 20. Take over Canada, Greenland, and the Panama Canal. Abolish all important government agencies while playing golf. I would be the best president ever. No one would be as amazing as me. Story 21. Probably roll a blunt. No. I have my assistant roll it while I watch random, weird videos on TikTok. Illegally, because no one from the government is supposed to be on TikTok. Smoke the blunt and probably call one of my buddies to discuss what he thinks I should do first as president. He says, I don't know, man. I'm like, haha. Yeah, I don't either. Finish my blunt and call my assistant into my room, thinking she rolled my blunt to perfection. After that, I take a nice little nap. Story 22. Jail every member of Congress and their spouses involved in stock trading. They are using your taxes to make money in the stock market rather than using it as intended. Story 23. Universal health care, an increase in the minimum wage, and a decrease in inflation are important topics to consider. Story 24. Make it illegal for any person or company to own more than 4 houses. People are protesting against Donald Trump and Elon Musk, but they won't protest for affordable living. It's crazy to me that people with degrees can't even get jobs. What was the point of going to school? Working hard gets you nothing these days. I just want to have a job as a software engineer and pay affordable rent. I'm feeling broken down from this. Story 25. Is the Supreme Court making the president unaccountable for breaking laws if it is for the good of the country? I would ensure that the former president is not able to reclaim the office. Story 26. Raise the tax rate back to what it was from 1944 to 1963. Then hire the smartest people to fix the education system. Executive orders should ensure that anything sold as food is indeed food, with no processed options. This is just the beginning. Story 27. Arm Ukraine and give them full permission to strike Russia wherever they choose. Story 28. Abuse the system like everyone else in power to ensure my family has generational wealth. Story 29. Protect people. Support education. Provide equal opportunity for all. Protect the elderly and disabled. Preserve our founding ideals and concepts. Support the arts, sciences, and industry, and encourage higher education for all, including career and academic pursuits. Preserve our forests, resources, water, air, land, and coastal environments. Encourage green energy and renewables. Negotiate peace through diplomacy and protect international stability. Support international partners. Provide opportunities for immigration with a well-funded pathway to citizenship. Reduce taxes on middle and lower incomes. Encourage a budget that favors economic development for all Americans. Provide access to healthcare and dental and vision care for lower and middle-class incomes. Eliminate the Citizens United ruling, ban politicians from trading stocks, and create opportunities for multiple entry points into politics for all qualified individuals. Fund grassroots campaigns with tax-exempt nonprofit funding sources. Send everyone a box of candy for Christmas. Story 30. I would seal every border to keep all Americans in. I would dissolve the Union, abolish the entire Constitution, shut down the government for as long as possible, then abdicate the role of president and go home. Let you sort things out. Story 31. Nothing really all-encompassing, given that my decisions may not be popular since I was not elected. Business hours are from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. the Monday after the Super Bowl. Yardages of over 220 yards for par threes are illegal except for professional play. Movies and sporting events must begin within 5 minutes of the scheduled start time. Distracting noises like car horns and sirens may not be broadcasted through radio. Missouri will be renamed to Misery, and some areas of southern Michigan will be ceded to Ohio to create a straight border with Indiana, as Ohio needs to win in something other than football. Story 32. Put everything back together that is stripped, killed, broken, or fired. If I had another move, it would be to have Trump thrown out of the White House like an old-time drunk. Story 33. Deport the current administration to Congo, while requiring them to carry large backpacks of food that they must defend with kitchen utensils. Story 34. If it is the current president, it might be the only day in my entire life when jumping off a cliff would seem appealing. Story 35. I would increase education department funds by reducing the size of the Department of Transportation. It is the most inefficient department I have ever seen, with 1 working person and 4 people observing every time. Story 36. Nothing impactful can really be done in a day unless it can also be undone the following day. Instead, I would use the visibility of the platform to discuss the issues directly, without political jargon. It has to be something that voters would support and pressure Congress to address over time. I would propose a constitutional amendment for voting rights. This would specifically include ranked choice voting, an increased House of Representatives count based on the maximum constituents per representative, which decreases the impact of the Electoral College, providing a right to vote for all citizens, and computer-generated congressional district maps. For the congressional maps, I would propose asking artificial intelligence to generate 100 models and demonstrate what the borders would be for each over the last 20 years. Each party would then be allowed to eliminate 5 models at a time until 5 remain, after which a single model would be retrained based on the remaining 5. To gain momentum for the right to vote initiative, a concession like voter identification may be necessary. However, combining this with a right to vote would address many of the arguments against voter ID requirements as well. Alternatively, I would consider sabotaging as much as possible for Trump to make it more difficult for him to carry out his agenda when he returns the next day. Story 37. I may not have the political power to do so, but I will advocate for LGBTQ rights to be included in the Constitution. Anyone attempting to revoke these rights will be deemed a traitor to the country, facing exile as punishment, and the government will confiscate their property. Story 38. Take away almost all the power of a president and give it back to Congress, where it belongs, then eliminate presidential immunity. Story 39. I refuse to answer on the grounds that I may incriminate myself. It would be loud and bright, possibly causing widespread flashbulb memories. It's a peace in our time kind of situation. Story 40. I would hire over 50 dressed-up Broadway theater performers as different alien species and stage an escape from Area 51. They would run off into the sunset while a crowd watches in amazement. The Federal Bureau of Investigation and Homeland Security can argue about what to do with the performers. They will come up with some reason. Story 41. Very few things could be accomplished in a day that would actually have a lasting impact. Perhaps I would begin by granting preemptive pardons to myself and certain others. Releasing key documents that expose corruption would also have a lasting effect. Otherwise, there's no way anything interesting remains beyond that day. However, if I were a dictator and any law I enact would be passed and remain in effect, I would focus on election reform. Then, assuming this is America, I would implement universal health care. Most other actions I would take would revolve around anti-corruption measures. Story 42. I would pay my mother's rent, free my friends, bulletproof my Chevy doors, lay in the White House and get high, Lord. Story 43. Whatever I can to make life easier for the American people. Women want bodily autonomy? They have it. Common sense gun laws? Done. Legal cannabis? Hand me the pen. Taxing the billionaires significantly? Oh, it is happening. Story 44. I do not get anything done because I realize the executive order is not meant to bypass the rules of democracy. Sometimes, in a democracy, things take time to be agreed upon and completed. Story 45. Given the new presidential immunity powers, I have a long list of individuals I would order special forces to eliminate immediately. I would then pardon myself for any past or future crimes. After that, I would pardon all federal prisoners convicted solely of drug-related offenses. I would appoint Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez as Attorney General through a recess appointment, if possible, just to see the reaction from Republicans. Story 46. Appoint me for a few more days, get a pack of markers, a stack of executive orders, and fix America. Story 47. The president or a president? If I could control the president and still return to my body after the time is up, then I would give Joe Biden his security clearance and Secret Service protection back and then proceed to harm myself on the White House lawn in front of everyone. Story 48. I spent my day talking to constitutional lawyers to discuss the legal powers a president has in my country when they are not mentioned in the Constitution. Story 49. Install ranked choice voting by mail for all citizens and ban gerrymandering. Apparently, presidents can now do whatever they want. Story 50. The Federal Reserve is leaking information about unidentified aerial phenomena to silence enthusiasts. There is an ongoing conflict with China regarding emissions, and we need to address overfishing by other countries. We should reverse changes made to school meals during Michelle Obama's tenure and ensure they are free for students. Additionally, we should focus on nature preservation and develop structured long-term facilities for the homeless, recognizing that some individuals may not wish to be productive. We need a nationwide sound train system for both people and freight, allowing for convenient travel from home to train stations. We should implement term limits for Congress and consider aligning senators' salaries with their state's minimum wage. If I could request unrealistic changes, I would want James Gandolfini to be resurrected, the Epstein logs to be released, and a fast track for citizenship for long-term, hardworking residents. It's essential to find productive solutions to reduce gang violence and take a firm stance against organized crime. Lastly, we should investigate common myths, as it is difficult to believe that someone is brushing their teeth as often as described. Story 51. Announce free healthcare for all. Specify that any senator or congressional member who votes against it should not be re-elected. This approach may be effective. Story 52. Well, beforehand, I would get a few billionaires in my pocket so we could do some real damage for our personal gain. Then I would give one of those billionaires my debit card. Oops, I mean the country's financial system. I would give him that. Things like education are essential. Financial aid is discretionary. Story 53. Issue an executive order that I demand be submitted to Congress as a bill stating that the president cannot act in an official capacity without Congress in session, except to issue emergency aid or to call Congress to session. The fact that Congress does not work on weekends while certain individuals continue to sign executive orders during that time is frustrating. Story 54. Undo every single executive order of Donald Trump from 2025 and issue my own series of orders, including one mandating the release of his tax returns and another requiring that anyone with personal wealth exceeding $999,999,999 be taxed heavily on all funds above $1 billion. Then I would get creative with the rest of the actions I would take that day. Story 55. I'm going to assume this is the United States of America, and my policies wouldn't just be thrown out the next day. Okay. Institute proportional voting for all elections. That's it. Story 56. If I become the current president, I will board Air Force One at the end of my 24 hours and jump out right before I switch back. Story 57. Executive order closing all tax loopholes for the ultra-wealthy and undoing all of the tax breaks that were given to them. Make them pay a 90% tax rate. Story 58. Send Elon and Trump to Guantanamo Bay, lock them up, and throw the key into a bottomless pit. The guards can be Nancy and Liz, and all they can eat are rotting vegetables that sit on docks, not delivered. Story 59. Grant transgender people the right to live. Make abortions legal for those who need them, and my vice president would be a cat named Sir Meow. Story 60. Before anyone criticizes my views on the powers of the president, I understand that aspect. However, I view this post as a lighthearted thought experiment about what changes one would make in a day if given the power. Real changes. Expand the Supreme Court to 13 justices and enact a law to increase the number by 1 justice for every 25 million individuals counted in the census. Implement term limits for all positions in government, including judges. Establish a 10-day waiting period for firearms purchases. Prohibit all automatic firearms in civilian ownership. Close the loopholes that exist at gun shows. Grant statehood to Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. Increase taxes to 75% for individuals earning over $250 million. Introduce ranked choice voting to help dismantle the extreme two-party system and promote compromise. Establish universal health care. Empower Congress to negotiate more favorable drug pricing. Create more efficient immigration courts, judges, lawyers, and systems to simplify legal immigration and citizenship, ensuring all participants contribute to the system. Eliminate all toxic chemicals from our food supply that have been reasonably banned by other countries. Fun ideas. Implement instant replay and allow the ability to challenge every play in sports. Adopt 4-day workweeks. Provide 9 months of maternity and paternity leave. Establish 1 national holiday each month, allowing an extra day off for everyone. Steal this idea from Vermin Supreme. Ensure everyone receives a pony. I will return to add more fun ideas. Story 61. I would support a free education day. A day when individuals earning under $40,000 a year can access educational resources at no cost. This includes laptops, books, and vocational programs. If you truly wish to improve yourself and contribute to the country, educating yourself is essential. I would also advocate for a free outdoor day, where activities such as fishing and hunting would be available without tags, limits, taxes, or fees, focusing only on the protection of endangered wildlife. For one day, people could connect with nature and experience the benefits of being outdoors rather than spending time on social media. Story 62. Release the Epstein files, undo all of the executive orders from the current administration, and provide the Central Intelligence Agency with a list of select individuals. Story 63. I would change the election law. Anyone who wishes to campaign must do the following. 1. Check for health, both physical and mental. No donations from large corporations. No personal attacks. Candidates cannot have any litigation. No criminal record, not even an indictment. No false information allowed on the campaign trail. There is much more to this. I hope someday this will be the case for the United States. Story 64. I cannot express my feelings here, but we can all imagine. I love people and empathize with their struggles. That is all I have to say. Story 65. I would establish myself as a dictator for life, significantly reduce federal spending, and create facilities for detaining individuals. I would deploy armed enforcers to go door to door and develop methods to transfer wealth from the lower classes to the wealthy. I would employ teenagers for these tasks and refer to it as an audit. Story 66. Immediately dismiss everyone in my circle. Undermine the vice president, cabinet, and Congress and resign. But that's just my opinion, I suppose. Story 67. My country has prime ministers, not presidents, and I wouldn't be able to make any real changes in just one day that Keir Starmer couldn't undo the next day. Therefore, I would simply give a speech and say something foolish. Story 68. Enact as many executive orders as possible in 24 hours. Repeal tariffs. Close the cryptocurrency trade. Reinstate the Department of Education. Rejoin the Paris Climate Agreement. Launch investigations into former President Trump, Hunter Biden, the Clintons, and former President George W. Bush. Recommend reinstatement of net neutrality to the Federal Communications Commission. Repeal the transgender military ban. Eliminate all student debt. Advocate to end funding and suspend diplomatic ties with Israel and Saudi Arabia. All of this at minimum. Story 69. File 200 executive order immediately like the last two and keep switching the lights on and off. There is no forward progress, just staying in the same situation forever. That's what I would do. Hopefully, someone will leave the switch alone. Story 70. Declare martial law for about 6 hours while the military arrests every health insurance CEO. Create an executive order to declare them traitors. Let's see everyone return to their earnings meeting after that. Story 71. I would go to my nuclear bunker and proceed to start and win World War III from my suitcase while engaging with female Reddit users. Story 72. Eliminate campaign donations. Each candidate will receive the same amount of time on national television and participate in 2 debates. Story 73. Do the unthinkable and declare that my day ends when I die. Then, use all the time I have to create a direct democracy and attempt to unite humanity at the same time. Story 74. Go back to the tax structure of 1960. Implement a plan for healthcare for all. Start a national lottery that supports healthcare and social security, while maintaining the separation of church and state. Expand the Supreme Court to 13 members with term limits. I realize I have the power to do these things, but so do other presidents who make similar promises. Story 75. I would do the opposite of everything I want to accomplish. That way, when Trump undoes everything I did, he would actually be doing what I want. Story 76. Learn national secrets about aliens and other subjects. Then I will probably try to create a job for myself that pays well. Story 77. I would go on traditional media and deliver a real speech like presidents used to do when addressing the entire American public. I would ask everyone to find common ground and similarities in our end goals and to stop the divisive hate rhetoric on all sides. Then, I would attempt to persuade the American people as a whole about my plan for the future and utilize our legislative branches and traditional political compromises instead of executive actions to achieve it. Finally, I would wake up from my dream and realize that nobody else shares this sentiment anymore. Story 78. 1. Science funding would be known 25 years in advance and can only increase from the baseline. No more for-profit health insurance companies. No more push advertising or marketing. Advertisements should only appear when individuals search for an item. Campaign finance reform. One website will list the ideas of each main candidate. The maximum spending limit is $1 million, allowing many candidates to enter. News stations will donate 100 hours of airtime, and no other advertisements will be allowed outside of television and radio. No more gerrymandering. Districts will be mostly square with slight adjustments to account for rivers, lakes, and highways. Make the Supreme Court legitimate again by disqualifying individuals with serious moral failings such as dishonesty or substance abuse. Birth control should be free and encouraged for teenagers. Abortion will remain legal indefinitely. Individuals should not have children if they cannot provide mental, physical, and financial stability to be healthy parents. Prioritize self-improvement first. Increase access to adolescent psychology services and support for new parents. Guarantee jobs with a minimum wage for tasks such as garbage collection, tree planting, food preparation, and elder care. 10. Establish large centers on the Arizona and Texas borders to house and train immigrants. These centers will facilitate English learning, skill development, and collaboration on community projects, while also providing low-cost healthcare and training through supervised programs from students in medicine, social work, and education. 11. Transition the United States to the metric system. Story 79. My country or the United States of America? Because apparently being president of the United States allows you to cause massive and irreparable damage both nationally and internationally within 24 hours, which is not possible to repair during the next term in office. Story 80. Use the significant powers granted to me by the Supreme Court to demonstrate why presidents should not possess that power. The goal is to instill a sense of apprehension in the Supreme Court so they understand the necessity of reversing it. Story 81. Use artificial intelligence to generate options for electoral boundaries based on a combination of geographic natural boundaries and similar population numbers in a geometric pattern to reduce gerrymandering and ensure all votes count. Eliminate the Electoral College. Remove special interest and corporate lobbyists. Implement rotating term limits, such as 15 years, for Supreme Court seats, allowing the sitting president to nominate a judge 2 years into their term. Limit profits made by large pharmaceutical companies on drugs they did not develop. Insulin should not be prohibitively expensive. Prohibit add-ons to bills that are unrelated to the proposed legislation. Legislation such as 9/11 assistance for families should be evaluated independently of unrelated amendments. Issue an executive order stipulating that future executive orders and pardons have a 30-day waiting period before being enacted to allow for judicial and Senate review. Story 82. The key is to implement measures that are not controversial but are effective and helpful. Otherwise, they will be reversed the next day by the sitting president. Daylight saving time is an example of this. Alternatively, relinquish as much power as possible, including the ability to undo changes to authority. Story 83. Create abortion clinics that are fully protected as secondary sites and ensure there is one in every state in a central location. This will also allow for doctors to perform emergency surgeries for pregnant women who require care. Story 84. I would solve the border problem by significantly increasing funding for immigration services to make the process of becoming a legal immigrant easier and quicker, which should reduce incentives for illegal immigration. Story 85. Executive Order. Elections are now on the weekends and declared a national holiday. Executive Order. Abolishment of presidential immunity. Story 86. Focus on pediatric care and eliminate unnecessary obstacles. Alternatively, establish a law that ensures providing care to children is a priority without negative repercussions. Story 87. Golf in America. Make birthdays for yourself, your spouse, and your children a mandatory option between overtime or paid time off. Story 88. Have the entirety of Congress and the Supreme Court arrested, stripped to their underwear, shaved bald, and marched into the nearest prison to never see the light of day, or until I am assassinated. Story 89. I will do everything in my power to lower gas prices and the cost of living, without giving billions of dollars to Ukraine. Story 90. Ban homework, implement universal income, provide universal health care, and eliminate censorship of art. Require MasterCard, Visa, PayPal, and others to allow the sale of legal adult content, whether it is art or legal-aged sex workers. Take over Canada and rename it to Hat of America. Story 91. I would declare a national do-nothing day, where everyone gets paid to stay home, binge-watch their favorite shows, and eat pizza. Then I would sneak off to Area 51 to finally get some answers. Story 92. Flat rate tax for every working person and for every business. If everyone paid their share, our flat rate would only need to be about 10%. 10% for individuals, 20% for small businesses, and 40% for major corporations. Tax churches at least 50%. Cut the defense budget. Increase the education budget. Establish universal health care. Those in Washington, D.C. receive it for life, we should too. Abolish the Electoral College. Every vote has equal value. Every vote really counts. I would eliminate extravagant spending on ordinary parts and supplies, even pens and other office supplies. We don't need a $5,000 pile of engraved pens for signing treaties or major bills. They can go to a local office supply store, where the pens are still relatively expensive. Cut all the unnecessary expenses. Do not allow individuals to serve as senators, representatives, governors, or presidents if they have interests, investments, or ownership of companies that would directly benefit from any legislation they vote on or implement. Implement term limits for every political position. Each bill must address a single topic. No more sneaking unrelated measures into other bills. No more lengthy bills. All legislation must be clear and specific. A politician's pay would be docked for every day they are absent and for every vote they do not participate in. Maintain the minimum age of a U.S. president at 35 and set the maximum age at 54 when they begin office. If they turn 50 during their first term, they would be limited to only one term. Reduce the salaries of all politicians in Washington, D.C. Reduce the salary of the U.S. president. Current presidential salary, $400,000. Reduce it to $250,000. The $50,000 expense account for food, laundry, etc. should be changed to $0. The additional travel expense account of $100,000 should be eliminated. They already receive free transportation for any work-related activities. The first family receives $100,000 to redecorate the White House. This unnecessary expense should be eliminated. The residence does not need to be redecorated for every president. Former presidents continue to receive a salary for the rest of their lives. For instance, Jimmy Carter, who served from 1977 to 1981, earned $200,000 a year while in office with a $50,000 expense account. As an ex-president, Carter received $551,000 for fiscal year 2024, which included $236,000 in pension benefits, $118,000 for office space, and $173,000 for contracted personnel compensation and benefits. Bill Clinton, who served from 1993 to 2001, earned $200,000 a year with a $50,000 expense account. As an ex-president, Clinton received about $1.3 million for fiscal year 2024, which included $222,000 in personnel compensation and benefits and $255,000 in pensions. He had no travel budget but received $661,000 for office space. Given that they would find it challenging to secure another job, they should receive about $250,000 per year without the additional perks. I would cut all of that as well. Finally, I would abolish executive orders. Story 93. 1. Nationalize healthcare and pharmaceutical companies. Nationalize oil and gas companies. Sign an executive order for the immediate creation of universal free healthcare. Use the $1.5 trillion I just saved to nationalize infrastructure companies and put them to work under government supervision. Renovate and upgrade every inch of infrastructure in the country. Cap executive salaries at 5 times the lowest paid employee. Double the budget of the Department of Veterans Affairs. Double the budget of the Environmental Protection Agency, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, United States Agency for International Development, Doctors Without Borders and fast response teams. Ban stock trading by any elected official. Implement blind trusts for all of them. Ban lobbying. 10. Remove the Second Amendment from our lives. Create a registry. Ban any weapon aside from handguns for self-defense and select firearms for hunting. 11. Outlaw naked short selling and create a registry for any short sale. 12. End tax breaks for religious institutions. 13. Ban privately owned prisons. 14. Nationalize defense contractors. 15. Create a sovereign wealth fund similar to Norway's. 16. Eliminate all taxes of all kinds. Implement a flat federal tax rate of 20% for everyone, including all companies and corporations. 17. If you measure your wealth by the value of your stocks and can take loans based on them as collateral, you will be taxed on them. It is either an unrealized gain or loss. Choose one. 18. Some offenses will now carry a life sentence, such as killing someone while driving under the influence, child abuse of any kind, rape, and elder abuse. 19. Cap Supreme Court tenure at 18 years. 20. Rejoin the World Health Organization. 21. Confirm the Tokyo and Paris agreements. Just for my first 20 minutes in office. If you think this is a lot, Trump signed 26 on his first day. Now bring on the Second Amendment advocates. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.